Hopefully, I'm just checking. Let's see. I'll just move this up. See whether you can hear me. I don't. Let's just see whether you can hear me. I don't. Let's just see whether you can hear me. See whether you can hear me. I don't. Let's just see whether you can hear me. I don't. Let's just. Okay, I think that's it on Twitch and. Hopefully, I'm just checking. Let's see. I'll just move this up. Right, I'm pretty sure that's all coming through. So let's go on. So basically, today I decided that I'll do a little talk on performance profiling, which is something that I came across when I was doing my master's degree. We had a guy come in from the sports sport is it sport the people that deal with training Olympic athletes anyway, and he kind of gave a talk on performance climbing and performance profiling, and this is going to be a little talk on basically performance profiling specifically for rock climbers. So I've done this quite a few times in the past, and as a result I've got quite a few kind of ideas. So if I just go to this one, there I was doing my master's degree. We had, and as a result, some help online in the degree. And as a result, some of this sport. Is it sport? The people that deal with training climbing resources. There's like a kind of PDF of what I'm going to show you here. Master's degree. And as a result, some help online in profiling. And this is going to be some people that deal with training climbing resources. PDF of what I'm going to show you. And as a result. What performance profiling is about, it's taking a concept that there are four major aspects to performance. They are technical performance, tactical performance, physical performance, and psychological performance. And over the years, what I've done is done quite a lot of this. And over the years, I've got quite a massive list. But if anybody thinks that I'm missing a technical skill or a tactical skill or psychological skill, then please, get in contact via one of the chat rooms, and I can add them at a later date and I can put them on the server. But essentially, what we're going to look at today is, I'm trying to find the right thing, is performance profiling. So we're going to start off with looking at what there is. So what the idea is we go with a load of skills and you're trying to find a focused where you only have like about 8 things is what I'm going to encourage you to do. So basically, we're going to try and find the worst performing areas in our technical skills, our tactical skills, our physical skills, and psychological skills, and use that to have a holistic approach to designing your training programs. And so what you've got to do to start with is go through, and I've got these all listed, and you can print out a PDF, you can use this, or you could just write it down. But you kind of look through all these things and it's like, technical skills are things like footwork, balance, body position, using your handholds, finding rests. And you go through this whole list and there's a little bit of a explanation next to most of them. Obviously not the dynamic moves. I will sort that one out in a bit. If I go here, is it technical skills? Hang on, technical skills, dynamic moves. C, bring that across, and then that needs to go Bosch, body, and then downsize. Yeah, so you can go through all of this, and then you kind of like, you're just picking out like, let's just say 4 or 5 that are are really important to your climbing. Now, when I say your climbing, that will mean if you're a boulderer, maybe climbing slabs isn't your thing because you generally don't climb them, but maybe they're and if you're a sports climber, then pricing trad gear, which isn't another thing. And so you're going to go through each of these and you're just selecting the top five in technical and then tactical. And so here we've got like warming up, reading routes, finding rests, efficient clipping. If you're boulder, you don't need efficient clipping or placing gear. But if you want to try and do problems first time, so if you're like a competition climber, you might want to work on your ability to do them first time rather than your ability to red points if you're, so you just go through this. And again, 5 things from here, 5 things from the physical, and we've got all sorts of things from understanding training principles to aerobic endurance. And then you come into the psychological. And basically, once you've ticked off down here the 5 things from each category, you then need to transfer them across to this results thing. And so each area you've got sort of technical, tactical, physical, psychological. And the reason that I'm really focused on splitting those up is because I want you to focus on 2 things in each of those areas for a month. And so we still got more than 2. And so what you then do is you put this in here, you write down the attribute, add a little description of what that means to you. What I've put in my description might be totally different to what you've put in your description. And so you then need to this is where it gets it's kind of subjective, but it's your subjectivity to your climbing. You can, if you've got a coach, if you've got somebody else, they might look at your climbing and say, actually, you're totally off. This is what you need to work on. But, in terms of like an easy way to assess your own needs, what you're going to do is school yourself of like where you are now. So let's say we picked from technical, we picked balance and body position. And so we'd put them here. We're like, well, at the moment, my balance isn't great. It's not, I'm not falling over. So it's like, it's a 5 or a 6 out of 10. But actually, I'd like to, within a month, try and develop that to a 7 or an 8. Be distinctive. Don't put like 1 or 2. Let's say I'm a 5 and I want to get to an 8. And you go through and you score every single attribute. And then you then, for each attribute, you want to say you've got where you are now and where you ideally want to be at the end of that month, and then you minus where you ideally want to be from the score you are now, and that gives you a difference. And the biggest differences are what you should be working on, because that's the greatest difference. And so it's not necessarily crude. This is used by Olympic athletes just to fine tune. A lot of these people, they've trained all their life. They're utterly amazing athletes, and all they've got to do is just, they're looking for that tiny little edge. And so they need to identify these things. And so it works a little bit better with people who are very aware of training and the skills that they need for the actual sport they're doing. And this is, again, if your friend is a trad climber and you're a sport climber, you're going to have different needs. And so it is very individualized, but hopefully it will help you. And then what you're going to do is, for each of these 5 things that you've scored, you're looking for the 2 biggest differences. Now, sometimes it can be really easy in terms of looking at the differences and they stand out and you'll find 2. Sometimes you'll get 3 equally matched. There's things you can do. One is just use your gut and think about which one you really want to use. The other one is, if I use those 2 examples like balance and body position, actually they're quite related in that, our balance is often related to our body position. And so I might just throw them in together of like, I'm going to work on my body position to aid my balance. And so what we're going to do is you need to whittle, if you like, what we're doing is whittling these massive lists of like, there's like 13 or 14 aspects of performance for each of the attributes. We then whittle them down to just 20, and then we whittle those down to 8. And we're trying to do that as systematically as possible. Okay. Uh, and then we need to go into some kind of goal setting. So if I just, what I'm going to do is I'll move up to the end. Sorry, I'm just going through some things. So if I just move this across, so this that we're seeing now is an example of, I did this a few years ago. This is 2018. I was um, basically spending a month in Spain and a month coming back home, and I was desperate to on-site 7B. So every time I came back for a month, I spent a month focusing my training, and I would think to myself, right, what do I need to do? And I came up with, have the strength and power to on-site um, this grade regularly. Ooh, sorry, I'm just trying to find where I've put. No. Here we go. And so what I did is sort of write an objective, so part of it was, I thought I needed to develop a bit more strength and power. And a way that I thought of doing this was like, actually, I want the strength and power to on-site V4 like regularly, like, to climb 7B, I need to be doing this. And so that, rather than now be, this is the strength and power section I was working on. So the thing was like, I need to work on my strength and power in my performance profile. I've then turned that into more of a statement as to, that has objectivity rather than subjectivity. So here I've said has the strength and power to climb a set grade on site. So I've to me that is quite specific. I then have to break it down into strategies to achieve that, and then the tactics that I will employ to reach those strategies. So here I then have developed string finger strength by using fingerboard and bouldering on vertical over, so I'm working on finger strength. Uh, I'm developing shoulder strength by these things. And so what I'm trying to do is get much and much more specific each time I drop down a level. Now, I've talked very briefly about GOST goal setting. So what we have is G is your goal, O is your objective, S is your strategy, and T is your tactics. And what I basically did for my own climbing was I went through all these different things. Now, I'm not going to spend time. If you want to look at them, this is just an example. And that I did personally. Ignore this phase thing. It was for something else. But this example again, I've put on the server, but it's just an example. Now, if we move that out of the way. So years ago, I used to teach on this American course. And part of it, we kind of looked at like ways of like goal setting. And so this is where this came from. So what we're trying to do is, if you like, I've given you a way with the performance profiling to identify your areas of weakness. And now what we've got to do is make a ratified way with which we can create a set of goals like I've just done. So one of the reasons that we have goal setting is that goals help us maintain motivation, they help us progress, they give us something to aim to objectively and hopefully lead to improvement. There's this weird thing of what they call goal proximity, in that you're here where you, so you're here, this is your actual self, and then you've got your feared self, and then you've got your ideal self. Now, your actual self will work between your feared self and your ideal self. Now, different people get motivated by different things. Some people will be motivated to be repelled from being from the feared self, where some people get motivated by getting closer to their actual self. And a lot of it is to do with what they call goal proximity. So how close you are to either of those things will help you stay motivated. So one of the reasons, important reasons, is to help us stay motivated. The other idea is goal setting should, let me just try and move this in OBS. Hopefully that will transition. Yeah, it's not very easy to show you these things, and it will keep you aiming in the right direction. And so what we talk about when we're setting goals is often people have like a dream or a life goal. Your dream could be to climb, El Capitan. It could be to climb a grade. It could be to climb a specific route. And what we're going to look at is, that overall goal is is the carrot. It's the pinnacle. But actually, to get to that pinnacle, we've got to break it down, and this is where the GOST goal setting comes in. The whole joke: how do you eat an elephant one bite at a time? Most people would have heard of SMART goals, which are specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and timely. Now, what a lot of people struggle with is turning that into something meaningful, which is why the GOST goals work really well. In that, what we're trying to do is set ourselves a goal for a month. So we've got the timely thing. We're going to talk about realistic. So obviously, the realistic and attainable is all to do with, you want to be close enough to the actual goal that you're motivated to reach it, but not too far away that it seems unattainable and you get demotivated. Measurable and specific means that there are things that we can tick off that say, yeah, I am moving towards that goal. So that's all GOST goals are, is a framework. So the first thing is, what do you want to achieve? So having done this thing is, what is your goal? So when that's your, whatever that overall goal is, that's kind of what you want to be thinking about. Is, if your goal is to red point this grade or on site certain trad grade, then when you're going through the initial process, you need to have that in mind with, like, which of these attributes are going to help me achieve that goal. The next thing is objective. Is it a measurable achievement to attain the goal? What steps can you make? And again, you break that down. The other strategy is like more of a general pathway. Again, objective. And the tactic is the specific things you might add to your training in a week. Yeah, so it could just be, I just want to be a better climber. The objective might be to become a competent 510. Again, I gave this to Americans. Let's say 510 is E1, and taking my friends climbing safely by a certain date. Um, the strategy is you're going to work on techniques, tactics, safety techniques, and stamina. And the technique is, for the technique bit, you're going to focus on climbing slowly, focus on footwork, climb slabs and walls. And that's just one bit. The tactics would be, there'd be more stuff here. And so what you'd do is just work through them and come up with the best ideas. Now, if you are struggling with this, one of the things that where did it go? It's not that easy to get to this phase where you've gone through all of this thing. Now, if you're struggling with it and you want some help, what I am going to offer is, I'm sure nobody will, but if people want, I will help you go through this. I'd prefer it if you wouldn't mind being online, but I'm also aware that there might be, if you want to remain like anonymous and you do the initial I don't know what I just did. Yeah, and you go through, and if you've gone through this and you've got your results, we can arrange for you to send them to me, and I will go through them anonymously, and we can create a performance profile so that we have an example. And I'm more than happy to go through that at the moment because, like I say, I've got an injury. I get bored, and I'm very passionate about helping people. So if you're interested in something like that, then do let me know. The other bit is I've put online. Let's just transition that across. No, where you can never find no performance profiling for climbers. Yeah, is this document again? This is on that Discord server. I should bring it up in a minute, but it talks about this again, setting your goals, goes through a few things. There were a few added photos to it, but in essence, this was an article that was in Climber magazine many years ago. So yeah, if you're, where are we? Magazine many years ago. Document again. So this is on your Discord server. Document again. Like I say, if you're bring it up in a minute. I will again. Like I say, it talks about this again, setting your goals. Goes document again. So this is on your. There were a few added photos. Again, like I say, there were a few added photos. This was about this again, setting your goals. Goes document again. There were a few added photos. Yeah, I would say. There were a few added photos. Yeah, I would say. This Fairview Dome. Thank you very much. Have a good day.